Welcome to the Gospel Works Podcast, where we discuss how the gospel applies to work and life. We're your hosts. I'm Aaron Giesler in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and this is my good friend and criminal, Josh M.
That's true. I can't argue with it. There are many places and times that I've been where I have not exactly 100% followed the letter and or the spirit of the law.
I mean, one wasn't that long ago. Actually, two.
Yeah. So, and I think I've told you this already, but I'm driving back from here in Albuquerque, driving back to Texas, and I got up a little bit early and took off from Amarillo around 7:15, and I'd woken up at 7:08 because I'd been up very late talking to somebody.
My mother, she's a talker.
She's a talker. We had a great time, but I had an appointment in Dallas that I need to get to, so I was rolling. And just on those little back roads, I'm driving and I'm going over, not I-40, but one of those highways before it.
Yep.
And I look down and there's this car that's pulled up to the stop sign, and I'm going 75 right at the speed limit.
In a 45?
No, in a 75.
Oh, okay.
It's two lanes, both sides, so it's a pretty big highway, and this guy wants to go and turn left. So he looks over, sees me, and then pulls into the thing. And then stops because he can't make it. And then I slam on the brakes, and then I start to turn to the left, so I'll dodge him. Then he takes off again.
Nice.
So then I slam on the brakes more and start skidding and turn back to the right. And we miss each other by at least 1 foot. Evidently, there was no cops around to see that this dude, if I would have been...
He was asleep still, probably.
He was asleep still, but if I would have been checking my phone, that would have been a wreck.
Yeah.
And it would have been a nasty wreck because I was doing 75 and he was doing 7. And it would have been a T-bone. Like I would have hit that human being in the side.
Yeah.
Probably.
Normally you're a little more fast and loose whenever the cars come and trot the passenger.
Yeah, that's right. But there was nobody around. So honestly, I take off, like I slow down to 65 for a minute to think about life.
Yeah.
And then as I continue driving, I practice because I've only had my current vehicle, which it's an old vehicle, but it's new for me.
Hey.
I've never had to emergency stop, and it's a
power slide into an evasive technique.
Yeah. And so I was like, I didn't do that as well as I could have. And I was all the way awake now. So
And you got a mess in your britches.
That's right. And there's literally no other person it was Saturday morning or Sunday morning.
Yeah.
No other person on the highway. So I just practiced a few more emergency stops.
But so there was no cops.
There was no cops.
To catch that idiot. But there were a couple of cops that decided to give you some hassle later.
Yeah, 2 hours later, I'm driving...
on 287?
287, and 2 times a state trooper pulls me over. I'm going the speed limit.
Yeah, what's the major infraction?
The major infraction is I do not have a front license plate affixed to my car, which is not against the law in New Mexico, but it is a violation in Texas.
Yep.
And the guys, to their credit, were the good guys of state. There are cops, believe it or not, that abuse their power. These guys were super friendly.
Yep.
And so they gave me a warning, sent me on my way. And then I guess it was something that they were doing because 300 miles later, another dude pulls me over for the same thing. Just as friendly, gave me another warning. And so now I have purchased all the things. It took a little bit of research to find a front license plate holder for a 16-year-old car.
Hey.
But, it's done. Well, it's just an interesting thing. Like, there's a picking and a choosing as to what you're going to enforce. And there's also just this idea that you can't be everywhere at once. So there's a lot of things that happen that are illegal that you can't do anything about or that nobody does anything about.
Well, sure. I mean, The guy almost causing a wreck.
Yeah.
Nobody did diddly squat about that guy. But the major crime of not having a front license plate. I actually also got pulled over on 287 years ago. I got pulled over for not having a front license plate on my car, even though I'd moved to here and they don't give you a front license plate.
Right.
But I still had the residue from the registration sticker on my old Saturn. And so they assumed that I was still a Texas person just with no registration and no front license plate. And then he went around and pulled up and he's like, "Hey, are you really a New Mexico resident?" I showed him a thing. He's like, "All right, have a good day."
Yeah.
Because they literally don't give, like, I guess every time I go to Texas, I break the law because I do not have a front license plate.
And that's the same thing. I bought a car that was from another state. I took it to the dealer to get the tag. They don't carry 16-year-old parts in their inventory, so they tried to order it. I called back after a month. They never got back to me because they don't care.
Yeah.
They said, just put it in the dash or something, which that's also not legal.
No, you can't have it in the dash, the window,
Yeah, but it's interesting. These are just kind of illustrations of the fact that we have designed for ourselves, intentionally or not, a society in which it's impossible to even know the law, much less to follow it all the time.
Well, so for automobiles, it is, I don't know if it was designed intentionally, but it is absolutely utilized intentionally. In fact, a good friend of ours was a cop here, and on a ride along with him, he basically said, it isn't like if you drive for more than 10 minutes, you will break some law.
Right.
There is something that he can pull you over for. But the way it is now, there are so many rules. There's so much judgment. There's so much, subjectivity to it.
Right.
That's how they usually get probable cause to at least pull somebody over and see what they can see.
Right.
A friend of mine, he was kind of going between. He was a little tired. He was going between the lines. He got pulled over. I say friend of mine, an acquaintance. And that was all it took. He wasn't going over the lines. He was just kind of bouncing between the lines on the highway.
Right.
And before you know it, they had a drug sniffing dog out there.
Yeah.
And that's all it took.
Yeah.
It is impossible. It's impossible to follow the law because you don't know the law.
And even if you did know the law, maybe there's a lot of places where you couldn't actually keep it all in your head at the same time.
Yeah.
Which brings us to this point. We've talked a lot lately about the way the world is changing and how the automating of life is changing things. And we would be foolish not to think about the fact that it's not just us personally that are automating things, but it is also governments, works, other people that are automating everything. And so what is going to happen when we start automating obedience to the rules, whatever those rules may be?
I was thinking about this just as a society. I don't know if you know this, but the number of regulations that were published in 1980, there were 7,745 final ruled regulations.
Which I would say is impossible to know all of those.
It's impossible to know.
That's a lot, 7,000.
Now, by 2019, that number had dropped to 2,964. A decline, right?
70%.
70%. But here's and some of those were financial and transportation laws in the 80s. You had banking and telecom.
Deregulation.
Deregulation.
Right.
But there's another issue. Because what they don't have, so even though the number of regulations has gone down by 2/3 almost.
Sure.
So the regulations have gone down, but the number of restrictions. In 1986, there were roughly between 600,000 and 700,000 restrictions.
I'm again going to just say that's probably not possible to know all of those.
Not possible. So 7,700 regulations led to, let's just say 700,000. By 2026, That number is, I mean, it's not even up double. There's over 1.1 million restrictions. That's federal. That's federal.
And then there's all the state laws. Yeah, so I know the U.S. Code of Laws is 40,000 pages.
So
which that's not
the Federal Register.
Yeah, the Federal Register is much larger than that.
In 1986, it was 44,000 pages.
Right.
Now it's 106,000. Though in 2026, it's expected to dip slightly for the first time in years. It may go down to like 105,872.
Yeah. Well, I think the median number of books read by an American is 2 per year. And let's just
Dang, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good. And let's be generous. And let's say the average book is 500 pages. So the average person,
generous.
If all they did was read the law and nothing else, if that was like the most enjoyable thing they could think of to read, it would take them, 50 years just to read the laws, not even the regulations? All this is just to say, in our society, it is impossible to know the law. And that seems to be the case in every major developed country that I've been to, which is quite a few. And I would say the lawmakers don't know the whole law. Even law enforcement they know a lot more than we do, but they just know their subsection.
I mean, remember whenever was it Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act? It was like, well, we don't know what's in the law. Let's pass it, and then we'll find out.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a quote from one of the people that voted on it.
Right. And that's seems to be bipartisan. Doesn't seem to matter which party's in charge.
That's their MO is to
the MO.
Let's somebody's going to put together a law. We don't even know what's in it. We're going to vote yes or no.
Right.
We'll figure it out later.
Yeah. And so that it leads to a lot of questions. Is okay, what's the cultural driver that leads government, and if the same kind of trend is true in corporate America. So but before we get there, if we say even the lawyers and even if law enforcement can't know all the law, well, how can they enforce it?
They enforce the ones they want.
Yeah, they enforce the ones that they know. They enforce the ones that they have decided strategically make a lot of sense. For me, it was front license plate. Maybe that's random. Maybe they're looking for, my guess is, they're getting a new cool speed gun that also checks your tag so it can run you for any things while it's checking your speed.
It's like a long distance barcode reader that's on your registration.
Yeah.
So,
but who knows?
I mean, also you have you'll have DUI checkpoints.
Right.
I mean, they don't know if you have, a street sign, they're not looking for, something illegal. They're not looking for government property. They're not looking for stolen goods. They're stopping you to try to keep drunk drivers on a Friday and Saturday night.
Yeah. So historically, it's been impossible to enforce the law perfectly, or even to know perfectly if it's being broken. Knowing what's happening is costly. Yeah. Right? You have only so many police or FBI or CIA. You only have so many ways to surveil, so many ways to check information. And then we have some constitutional limitations. Whatever country you happen to be in, everybody has something that represents a Bill of Rights. The people in authority can only do X, Y, and Z.
Before we think this is a modern problem, and if this is the wrong place, you tell me. This is every society.
Yeah.
You go to Genesis 3 or Genesis 2, literally one rule.
Right.
We're bad at keeping it. Then there's some more rules. And then the Mosaic Law is given, 650 something, 17, something like that. But then there's then they add rules on top. There's the Talmud or the Mishnah or whatever it is.
Mishnah.
I mean, they add all of that to the point where they even, there was in the Jewish system of forgiveness, there was sacrifices for you. There were sacrifices for all the people for the law that you broke that you didn't even know you broke.
Right. The unrecognized sin.
But we are entering something new, and I think this is what you're going to talk about. We are entering something new where now it's not just about like what people see.
Right.
It's not just about what we know.
Yeah.
We're automating it.
If we think about pre-Jesus Judaism and post-Jesus too, but it was
Just call it Judaism, probably.
Right, Judaism. It was a decentralized enforcement mechanism because the community saw you carrying your mat when you weren't supposed to on the Sabbath, or not having the things on your door,
pushing the button on the elevator,
whatever it is.
Yeah.
As we've modernized, we've centralized authority to a great extent, and that's led to lots of things like, how do you know if someone has made cash money, someone has gotten paid? It's difficult. I mean, you can do it, but it costs a lot in goodwill. How do you know if someone put up a shed in their backyard without pulling a permit?
For example. That shed is movable. It is not a permanent fixture.
Yeah. Human trafficking has been the bane of the modern era. It's so prolific and so hard to figure out what's happening. How do you police a border, right? Like the border of a state, the border of a country, drug use, prescription drug use.
Domestic violence,
elder abuse.
I remember when we went to India, it was a few weeks, maybe a month after Modi had gotten rid of the two largest denominations.
Oh, right. I remember that.
Of the rupees.
The overnight change that no one saw coming.
Oh, and in fact, he hid it from everyone in the government except for like his two right-hand people.
Right.
I think last time I was there, it was an 88 to 1. So 88 rupees to $1. So not crazy, not like Indonesia where it was 15,000 to 1 or whatever. And they had something like 75% of all the transactions were cash. Even humongous building projects. I mean, a 1 billion rupee project was being done primarily in cash. And it's hard to tax cash. And so they had a 1,000 rupee note and a 2,000 rupee note.
Right.
And I think I think the biggest now they have is 5. I could be wrong on all this, but it was something like this. They got rid of the two biggest notes and said, "Hey, the biggest we have now is 500 or 200 or something."
Just to push them to use eCash.
Yes, because now if you had to deliver a pallet of cash, now you have to deliver 4.
In my work, we purchased a building once, and we had to pay for it in the equivalent of $3 bills. And so we paid $140K, $3 bills. That's a lot of sitting and counting.
Dude.
And
I mean, imagine all the jokes about $3 bills.
Right.
So,
yeah, and who knows if those people paid their taxes, whatever. Like, this is all...
They probably did.
But the situation is changing, right?
So why is it changing, Josh?
Well, the way the world is moving is that there's more communication between what is digital and what is physical. And what is digital is more permanent. It's more easy to see. For example, if you go to Flock, it's a space company. They put a bunch of satellites that are orbiting the Earth. They take 5 meter by 5 meter pictures of every foot of Earth 8 times a day, which means you could see if someone's building a shed in their backyard. Or the way that it was first used for real was the detection of a Chinese nuclear facility by a college student in the U.S. Not with the FBI, not with the CIA, just a kid trying to do his capstone project.
With a real weird hobby.
Well, he's like, I think it was a capstone project. It's like the best capstone project ever. It's already the case that the IRS is using artificial intelligence to determine which people to audit. And what I've read is that is determined on how much money they think they'll get, which is a function of how much money do they make and how much do they think they're not reporting, which may or may not be a great idea, but every place, like DoorDash knows more about your shopping habits than anyone has ever known about another person's shopping habits.
Even if you don't use DoorDash?
Unless you don't use DoorDash, right? DoorDash, your phone knows where you go, like all the things that it wouldn't be possible to know without hiring someone to follow you.
Yeah.
It's not possible. And then there's also the wave that's called AI is for 20 years, this storehouse of information has been growing, but it required kind of human power to sort through it and figure out what was valuable.
Yeah.
That is no longer the case, and it will become less the case in the future. It's now possible to use artificial intelligence, these things called agents, to go through data and to find places where stuff doesn't work or where it's broken, which means the cost of the government or your organization or corporation or church or whatever of figuring out when the rules are being broken and when to do something about it and how to do something about it, those costs are going down real fast.
Yeah. Well, and I was listening to somebody, maybe Adam Carolla, I don't know, saw a clip of him, and he talks about in California, even enforcement many times is based on people's ability to pay. And he talks about a road in the Los Angeles area.
Right.
He said where you will regularly see, soccer moms pulled over in G-Wagons getting tickets within eyeshot of people on the sidewalk shooting up heroin.
Right.
And the cop will never say a word to the drug addicts. Because you'll give them a ticket or you'll try to take them to jail, and there's no, that will just be more work and nothing will come of it.
And you could kind of see some of these things like in the automating of during COVID, like Australia was pretty innovative in using traffic cameras to analyze whether people were wearing masks or not. If you can do that and automate, the UK is starting to automate the surveillance of social media posts to see if they fall within the guidelines. Like all this stuff, if I said it's not new, what they're doing is they're becoming more capable of enforcing laws that are on the books. And there's a trend, and it's a trend that I think is tied to theology, really. AI kind of needs data to be effective. Effective AI gives power to humans. Humans who seek power are always going to be pushing to make sure that AI has more data. And they'll probably do it in ways that sound like safety or whatever, because that's
going to keep us so safe.
That's how humans do.
So Big Brother's always watching. Is that what you're saying? That's the point of this episode?
That's the trend of this episode.
Yes.
It's and it's not, like I said, it's not new. The government has always had things that it's been able to, and your work is the same kind of an organization.
Yeah. I mean, they've had how long have they had traffic cameras? How long have they had even speed cameras that weren't even like AI?
Right. Yeah. It's all automating enforcement of laws has a long history. The automation of like flagging audits for people who don't have W-2s this has all been around for a long time.
I wonder how you did speeding tickets before the radar guns.
Before the radar, you just looked and said someone.
It's like reckless driving. Like we don't know if you're going 62 and a 35, but it's reckless driving.
Go watch some episodes of
Mayberry or
Mayberry.
Yeah. And so, like technology has made enforcement of laws easier always.
Yeah. Well, there's been a plus and minus, right? Like there's always like encryption. Made it way easier to hide movements of information. That's why there was so much of a push from law enforcement to make encryption illegal and to forbid it from being exported to other places, because they were like, well, then we won't be able to illegally search your email.
I'd hate that.
Or even legal. And there has been a lot of like places where humans have pushed back against this stuff. They're like, I think in Albuquerque, the traffic cameras all got turned off, right?
Now they're back on.
Oh, they're back on. Good.
Now it's not a criminal thing, though.
Okay.
It's civil.
It's
so
civil.
It's $100 fine. You don't get taken to court. It goes against your credit.
Okay.
So
yeah, but there's like this action reaction. Like,
yep.
There's more surveillance or there's more enforcement. People get upset. People push back.
I think people got a little weirded out at the Super Bowl this year. Whenever was it one of the doorbell cameras?
Oh yeah, with the find your pet thing.
Yeah, like people were like, a couple of athletes on Twitter were like, everybody's taking off their cameras now, right?
Yeah. So, but the trend is still towards more enforcement, and I can't see a way in which society can organize itself well enough to prevent it, because particularly in America, the way we were set up is so that there would be lots of little small interest groups that are very active and energetic to push their issue forward. And then there's kind of the majority has weight of numbers but is kind of passive about things. And the way that this will play out is a small group will do something that the bigger group won't like, and so then they'll get this turned on them, and it'll just be a small thing.
Yeah.
But then a small thing, and they don't have enough power to push back. Or the other way, the small group will get the big group.
I think you saw that with the Twitter files when they were released. You had a small group of people really pushing to control narratives and to deplatform people.
Right.
But you're seeing it in corporate. In fact, Meta just came out last week or 2 weeks ago and basically said, we literally track everything on your work computer.
Right.
Mouse movements.
Yeah.
Keystrokes. Scrolling. They track everything. And they
for
said
their employees.
of their of their employees. Yeah. Sorry. Not. Are they probably doing it to us too? Probably.
It's a little harder.
When you're on the app, maybe,
yeah.
But they're not doing it all the time. But they said the reason they say they're doing it is to train AI.
Right.
How people naturally interact with computers and how they move their mouse and how the key, and so that it makes it understand humans better. But they're also probably making sure that you're working, making sure that you're on things, making sure you're not on things you shouldn't be.
Sure. Yeah. There's no real way, because the idea was good, right? To keep any one group from having all the power, you make sure that you make sure there's a multiplicity of groups. But that same trend, AI is a centralizing factor, and it's going to keep picking off little groups and little instances until
death by 1,000 cuts.
Until death by 1,000 cuts, right? So you've already kind of mentioned that these same trends are happening in work, and it's not just on the observation side, which is kind of common in tech companies, but it's also on regular work. Like most organizations now have a digital timesheet of some sort, which is stored across decades. If you work there for decades, just the amount of data that's available, and the amount of, if you go back 50 years and you look at the onboarding process and the HR manual, those things have experienced growth that is similar to the growth in the Federal Register. Why? Because they got to obey all the stuff that's in the Federal Register.
Yeah.
There's a lot of increasing bureaucracy.
I'm an admin. Like our church uses Microsoft 365. It uses Microsoft accounts.
Right.
It's like, and for churches, you either use like the Google nonprofit stuff or you use the Office 365. We're an office church.
Right. How dare you?
I know. But man, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, like you had to be a pretty high level exchange. Yeah, like a geek. You had to be uber nerdy to do all the stuff, especially for compliance if somebody sent, if we never had this, but you would get these reminders like, hey, if you need to freeze somebody's mailbox and then like go looking for stuff, say somebody was doing something illegal on your company's emails. It took time, and you had to hire an expert on the old CCTV stuff. I mean, it took time, and you would be looking for 3 days for stuff.
Yeah.
Now on Microsoft, you just type in whatever you want. I mean, and it'll go find it. Like if you go to a certain spot and say, hey, I need to look at somebody's email.
Right.
It is so easy because of automation.
Right.
The CCTV now, it's like, oh, I'm looking for somebody with a blue shirt.
Right.
And those are not government, not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Those are run-of-the-mill, average, everyday cameras. So your work, your job, if you use Google or Microsoft, I mean, they have all these tools. They can pretty much see, if they want to, everything you're doing.
Right. And again, we're talking about work here in the more limited sense. We normally talk about work in the broad sense of all the things.
Your employer.
Yeah, but here we're talking about work in a community subject to the norms and principles of the community. But it doesn't matter.
If you're a stay-at-home mom, your coworkers also know the code password to your phone, and they're looking at stuff.
But it's just like, so you can track people's stuff through your Wi-Fi. And this is all, what we're saying is not that people are doing this.
No.
But we're saying there's pressure on people, on organizations to track everything from the government because of all these millions of regulations that they don't know.
Yep.
And throwing away data is a crime sometimes. When? Don't ask me. I haven't read the thing. There's a million of those guys. But
That's
I know
how good
that
your lawyer is.
I know that it is sometimes. And so you've got people that are trying to cover their tails. So you've just seen an increase in bureaucracy, an increase in lawsuits and all those things, and then organizations trying to make sure that they're doing what's called their due diligence or their a reasonable interpretation of the law, so that they can say that this isn't my fault. You got to sue the person and not me.
I also remember a few years ago, the church. Because we have, people come in, we have sports practices and we have ministry stuff going on where people will drop off their children and like hang out and wait for their kids to be done. And we got from Sony or Warner Brothers or something that says, hey, people have been illegally downloading our movies on your internet. Right. You need to take care of it. These are the email addresses and the IP numbers that they've been doing it with.
And then what did you do?
We asked that person. They went, I might have, or, maybe my older son or daughter, or, maybe it was on your Wi-Fi and I don't know what they were doing. Yeah. And I was like, well, you got to take care of it. And they're like, we'll take care of it. So that's the email that we got.
Yeah. It's just, so all we're saying is the world is not just interconnected more at a high level where you can't buy a computer that doesn't come from 185 countries. It's interconnected. All the data is going everywhere. It's your personal life and your work life and your public life are all interconnected. There's a lot more bureaucracy. There's a lot less costs to conducting surveillance. And here's the question for you. If you have a job, do you know your HR policy? Really?
I literally helped write it, and I don't know it all.
Yeah. I remember my last HR policy was like 70 pages, and I was like, I think I've got the gist. But, man, if they wanted to, they could totally have busted me. Probably.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm sure I did something. Well, I know I actually did some things because... Yeah.
So, Josh, is the point of all this to scare people?
No, not at all.
Okay, so is the point of all this to just say, hide, isolate?
No, the point is the same point that we have every time when we talk about work-related stuff, which is to say theology can only be done based on the context that you live in. And the context that we live in is changing quite rapidly in this area, which means we've got to theologize. We've got to connect our faith in Jesus to the fact that Warner Brothers can send an email to a church to cease and desist from strangers downloading stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a new reality.
So, because of all this stuff, our Christian obligation is to turn off all of our electronics.
It can't be that. It can't even be to, I mean, there's a lot of things it can't be. Without being too direct, I have broken the law on purpose in certain places because of my faith.
Yeah.
Places where
Your faith dictates you only have one license plate?
No, but my faith does dictate when I need to talk to people about Jesus.
Yeah. I have also done the same thing.
Yeah. So it's
The no proselytizing law doesn't apply in America, but other places.
the no giving medicine to certain kinds of people has applied to my life.
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. I think our theology is so informed by freedom of religion and the rule of law and freedom of speech. And it's been that way for 500 years. But that's not where we come from. Jesus didn't have the freedom to say what he wanted. In fact, he very definitely did not have the freedom to say.
I think his lack of freedom of speech is what got him into that trouble.
Yes, that's right. Are we ready to think about a world in which in America or in Indonesia or in Europe, you can't just say, I believe in Jesus, and therefore I am not going to go and murder these kinds of people, or I don't support this kind of behavior, or I'm going to love these people anyway, even though I'm not supposed to.
Because you can't just extract yourself from the world. I mean, even, it's like be in it, not of it. Like, remember that podcast with Mark Andreessen, who is he's a business guy. He's a venture capitalist. And he was talking about the Amish, because I think he's from somewhere around there. And somebody's like, oh, yeah, the Amish, they don't have technology. He's like, no, man, the Amish are just like 70 years behind. Like he said there are even some Amish that use computers now that are still like totally in the Amish, but they don't hook them up to the internet. And so even the best efforts to be disconnected, to be not
the desert
in
fathers.
The desert fathers. Like, people have tried to be out of the world, but you're still going to be in it.
And also, you can't be an ambassador if you leave the world.
Yeah.
So
how do you be in it but not of it? I guess maybe is the question. Like, that's the theological question.
There's a lot of implications that we can draw out. One of them is, like we're talking about, do we have a theology that is comfortable with illegal rule breaking in order to follow Jesus? Like, I think in our context, Romans 13, and which probably everybody remembers, but if you don't, I'll just read a couple verses. Romans 13:1, let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. Verse 5, therefore it is necessary to submit to the authorities, not only because of possible punishment, but as a matter of conscience, blah, blah.
What if he's not my president?
And most of us that live in a very safe Judeo-Christian society, we never kind of put into context that the same dude that wrote that also got thrown in jail like a bunch of times.
And would eventually get murdered by the person that in charge.
Right.
By his decree.
Yeah, and so we default to obedience. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think a day is coming, and it is now here, when that default should be regularly challenged by the Acts 5 model, which was Peter saying to the Sanhedrin after the Sanhedrin says, hey, quit talking about Jesus. And Peter's like, well, we leave it to you to decide whether we should obey God rather than human beings. But the God of our ancestors raised Jesus from the dead, right?
And they say, like, we will not stop talking about what we've seen and what we've heard.
Yeah, we are witnesses of these things, and so is the Holy Spirit of God, whom God has given to those who obey him, with the implication that that would be us and not you guys.
So you guys get to decide the law, but we're going to decide that we're going to follow it or not.
Right. That's the deepest roots of our heritage. Our heritage is we follow Jesus, who chose before the Sanhedrin, before Pilate, to say, you know what? You do what you got to do. I'm going to do what I got to do. And we're just going to see how it works out. Peter does the same thing. Paul does the same thing. I don't know that I've had a lot of conversations with folks that aren't willing to, and it's because most of them haven't really been put in the kinds of situations that I've been in or that you've been in, Aaron, where it's very clear that the commandment of the government is against the commands of Christ.
Yeah. In fact, I was preaching about this a couple of weeks ago. It looks like Jesus lost it first.
Oh, sure.
I mean, because he did what he had to do, and Pontius Pilate did what he had to do, and so did Annas, the high priest, But, 2,000 years later, a third of the planet worships Jesus, and Pilate and the high priest are the baddies. Who might have even been decent guys, to hang out with, but they are seen as just nothing but representations of evil.
And that kind of, I think, comes to the next major implication, which is not only do we have to have a theology that incorporates dissent when that is costly and illegal, against the norms, against the rules of the work or the government, we also really, really, really have to think through power and knowledge.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. Power.
Sinbad told me that in a More You Know commercial.
So theologically, we could say humans want to be like God. That's another way of saying humans are sinful. It's another way of defining sin.
I remember when we ate from that tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Yeah.
That did not work out. We did not become like God.
I mean, kind of did, but we kind of
There's many ways we did not.
There's many ways that we did not. And so a good anthropology, a good theology of how humans are going to behave is going to say, hey, humans are going to want as much power and knowledge as they can get at some level. And not everybody, not all the time. There's a lot of personality difference in how much control people want. But let me put it this way. If Machiavelli could have had infinite power and infinite knowledge, he would have taken it instantly. And I don't think we can say something that's very, very different from our presidents, our legislatures, our judiciary. They're going to feel responsibility. They're going to think of themselves as good people who are going to do good things with the power and knowledge that they have. So our question for ourselves is,
99% of politicians give the other 1% a bad name. Let's look at power, technological power of parents today.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I mean, there's a little app called Life 360 or, not Find My iPhone, but Friends and Family.
Yeah.
I have seen parents to the largest degree, but also other people, whether it's siblings or adult children who have the, Friends and Family, Track Your Friends and Family app. But I've seen it really hurt relationships because whenever you know where your child is going, your college-age child, it's well, I know what they do there. It's so what are you going to do with that? Well, if you say something, what happens then? Or you're not going to say something, you're just going to treat them differently. I've seen it really, we say we're going to get it. Well, we're just getting it. We're getting this Life 360. And again, I'm not hating on Life 360 or for it. I just have seen this. You get it. You go, you know what? I'm just going to use it to make sure in case something happens, I know. My intentions are pure as the driven snow. And it becomes control and it becomes power. Where were you last night? It becomes a test. Yeah. Where were you? Oh, I went to a friend's house. Really? I know you were somewhere else for 3 minutes. It's oh, we were dropping somebody. I mean, it becomes that. Even though the best intentions are, I'm just going to use this thing nobly. And so, even as Christians, how are we going to use the power and knowledge we have for good?
I think, and this is my interpretation of the gospel, I think, is that we need to define some limitations on our power theologically, in the same kinds of ways that the founders of the United States were willing to say, you know what, we think these people shouldn't be able to do these things, even though they themselves were going to be those people. They were making kind of a Odysseus pact where you tie yourself to the mast before you go past the sirens, because you got to steer, but you know if you listen to those sirens, you're going to go into the rocks. So how do we articulate the kinds of things that we should or shouldn't pursue as far as power? Or like if you're living in India right now and you still can choose your child's spouse, theologically, how do you justify that? And if you decide that you want to change because of the gospel, how do you justify that? These are not easy questions. I'm not saying that
you're not pro or against.
I'm not pro or against. What I'm saying is we better be thinking about it, because these questions are going to come to us fast and furious for the next 5 or 10 years as we kind of go into this AI revolution.
What are you going to do whenever you put OpenClaw on your computer, like on a Mac Mini, and you tell it, I want you to give me a summary of everything from every traffic site that my son, daughter, spouse, roommate, I want a summary of every traffic site they visited for how long. Because you could do that right now.
Yeah, it wouldn't be super hard.
No, in fact, easy and cost you less than $800.
Right. Yeah, for the Mac Mini.
For the Mac Mini.
Not for the ongoing cost of OpenClaw is negligible.
Yeah, and so, I mean, all of that, like, what are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
Is that going to be a temptation?
Yeah, you are going to get...
Like, that is Bruce Almighty, God level type knowledge.
Right. You're going to get the One Ring. Do you know when it's good to use the power? Is it always the right thing to throw it into Mount Doom? Yeah. Or sometimes do you need that power? Yeah. These are the kind of things that we have got to be able to think about.
And I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all.
And it's not one-size-fits-all.
You have a teenager you're really worried about. You have somebody that's dealing with mental illness, or then it may be good to have.
Right. Or in your workplace. Maybe you own the company or you're part of the company.
Yeah.
What if there's a reporting other people type of a thing? These are the realities of our world right now. And we have to think about it. And in the end, the question is going to be, and it's going to be asked in the last days, but I think it's also going to be asked in these days. And that is when this extra information becomes available. And it's retroactive. I mean, there are good reasons why this is not a video podcast, why I've kind of...
It's because you have a face for radio?
I've got a face for radio. And the way that I've arranged my digital life the way that I have is because I've lived in places where full transparency would have ended my journey with those people.
You mean you'd had a cul-de-sac of sorts?
Yeah, I would have exported from the cul-de-sac. I mean, it's China made Time magazine for arresting kids that went to college in the U.S., posted stuff on Twitter, came home a year or two later, because that Twitter stuff is still there. The stuff you posted on YouTube in 2007 or 9 or whatever.
The internet's forever.
The internet, is practically forever. These are difficult questions. So as this information becomes available, are we going to be known as believers for having been complicit in morally objectionable actions that just because they were legal? Are we going to be known for taking principled stands against things? In other words, are we going to have more tax fraud or less tax fraud come out once AI starts digging into our dirt?
I mean, I think you can say it like this, taking it scripturally. Are we going to be in the world and of it? Right. Are we going to be out of the world and not or are we going to be in the world but not of it?
You know, there's a chance that this helps us as believers to become more faithful followers of Jesus. Is it the case that we are going to have an easier time because we know that if we sneak the Snickers, that somebody's going to know? Or if we go to
it's going to be in 4K.
Yeah, it's going to be in 4K. Or if we go to the website that we know we shouldn't go to, or we make the impulse buy,
yep.
or whatever it is, maybe that helps. But also, it's going to mean like if COVID-27 comes,
oh, you be quiet, sir.
It's going to be harder to go against those things. So this is just coming, and we need to be starting to think about it. Not because it's the end of the world. The world continues on as it always has. We will always be tempted, and that temptation will always be common to all people, and we will never get more than we can bear. But part of the bearing it is thinking together about the world and how the gospel works in it. That's probably enough. It's heavy, a bit of a heavy episode. Let's recap. The world is becoming more authoritarian by default. And I'm not saying more conservative or more liberal. We're trying to stay neutral there. More people are going to have more information and more power in the home, in the workplace, in public than has ever been possible before.
Yeah. And it's true in politics. It's true at work. It's true in life. And so we need to develop a theology of power, so that our companies, our life, our politics,
our
families look different.
And we need to think through what we're going to do when it's time to disagree in principle with what our work or family or government is doing, because the day will come when your family has different religious views and they can know what you're doing all the time and get you. Yeah. And the government will do it, and your work will do it.
And they'll have to do what they have to do, and you're going to have to do what you're going to have to do.
Yeah. So here's our encouragement for you today, because this is where the rubber hits the road. Reflect on Acts 5 and where it might be appropriate to apply to your own life, in your family, in your work. And it goes like this. Peter and the other apostles replied, "We must obey God rather than human beings. The God of our ancestors raised Jesus from the dead, whom you killed by hanging him on a cross. And God exalted him to his own right hand as Prince and Savior, that he might bring Israel to repentance and forgive his sins. We are witnesses of these things, and so is the Holy Spirit, whom God has given to those who obey him. That is the foundation of our ability to both obey and disobey, by the power of the Spirit, knowing that God has gone before us in all things." Learning to follow Jesus in this crazy new world, as it becomes whatever it's going to be, requires real face-to-face community and relationships. We hope that you find that wherever you are. We hope that you don't get tired of us telling you, because it's true.
I don't care if you get tired of it. We're going to keep saying it. And I'm going to keep saying that if you live in Albuquerque, man, we would love to have you join us at Grace Church in the Northeast Heights or at Mesa Valley down in the South Valley.
Thank you for joining us. If you have comments or questions or ideas for a topic, reach out to us at our email address, thegospelworkspodcast@gracechurchabq.org. If you can't spell that, ask your AI agent to spell it for you. Our next episode features a lovely conversation with Tabitha Roybal.
Incredible.
An incredible conversation. A research and development chemist who decided to leave the lab for a season in order to do the hard work of raising children at home.
We hope you join us then, but until then, my name is Aaron, and for Josh, this is the Gospel Works Podcast.